Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and well, I think it's safe to say that the 2019 season is all but over. Mathematically, we can still turn this season around, but from what I've seen over the past 10 weeks, even the most optimistic of fans can't deny that realistically some type of miracle would need to occur to change our fortunes, injuries, suspensions, form. It's got to turn around. Will it turn around, Grapeviney? You're usually on the optimistic side of the demon coin. What say you?
Well, Andy, you must have missed the blistering last quarter that we played against GWS the other day, because that was champagne football, high-scoring football. So things are just looking great.
Well, I said to someone that you can wipe away that last quarter. That was junk time as far as I'm concerned, that whole last quarter. I think the game was well and truly dusted. I think they stopped.
I think you took off at three-quarters.
No, I did. I took off from where we were sitting because I was fuming, but I was still around and did get to see some nice, what might have been some nice football had we turned that on a little bit earlier. But as I said, I think it comes down to not meaning much.
No, it doesn't mean anything. Look, the most disappointing thing for me actually was seeing the guys fire up midway through the last when that incident with Clayton Oliver happened at sort of half forward or on the wing or thereabouts. And then all of a sudden the playing group seemed to be energised. And I thought to myself, hang on, where was this at the start of the game? And, I accept that the boys are trying. They're probably going 100% in terms of their effort, but the intensity, the urgency and the ferocity of last season has evaporated into thin air. And we were going at 110% last year, not 100%. And, it's really evident, I think, in our tackling. We were brutal and ferocious last year, but opposition players this season are waltzing through half-hearted, one-armed efforts. And it's just not good enough. And it's inexplicable. I don't know why that effort isn't there, that extra 10%.
Well, we saw that effort sort of return in the previous week in Perth, but it just evaporated, disappeared completely, was gone from the game this week. That we weren't controlling the ball at any part of the game, and I'm talking particularly those first three quarters. The game felt like one of those 2012, 2013 games where the opposition just dictated everything and we were just passengers.
It was a training run at times, there's no doubt about that. But did you think that the players, generally their heads were down, hands on hips, and just they didn't... I sort of noticed an absence of spirit. Which, as I said, then came up when it was way too late. And I'm not one that's been critical of our captains in the past, but I did question both Jones and Viney on the weekend, and just wondered, other than Max, where the leadership's coming from at the moment.
Well, what do we do with that? Do we... Are they going? Well, the question mark will be on Jones of what happens at the end of the year, whether he gets another year. Do they make a hard call with that? Does he make a hard call? And maybe if he does stay on, does he give up the captaincy?
I think he has to give up the captaincy if he's going to go around again. And look, it's probably too early to call whether he plays another season. Still got more than over half of this year left, so that'll settle itself in good time, you'd think, but I can't see him being skipper again next year.
Is it too early as well to talk whether we make a wholesale changes in terms of the leadership? Does Viney get himself right? Do you give him standalone? Do you look elsewhere? Do you go for a Max who's a born leader? He's great with the media. He's a natural born leader. Do we sort of go down that route and have wholesale changes, or that's too early to talk?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jack's issue is he needs to just play consistent footy and hopefully put, this injury interrupted 18 months behind him now. So, yeah, I'm confident if Jack can play a long sequence of games in a row, he'll get back to his best, and hopefully that'll mean being a good captain too. Look, he had 9 disposals in the first half on the weekend, and that's not good enough for a prime midfielder, and it's not good enough for the skipper either. His contribution came way too late.
He had a few. There were a few times where, and I mentioned to you this before, where he did some of that bullocking work. Oftentimes, when he gives out that "don't argue," it doesn't come off, and we've seen this year he's been caught a few times doing that. He did manage to get through quite a few times, and that's why I think I gave him a bit more credit in the game than you have. But 9 disposals up until half time is certainly not good enough for one of your leaders. But credit to GWS, that they're superb. They're flying at the moment. They're a team we probably should be modelling our game on. Every time they got the ball, it seemed like there was so much. Every time we got the ball, there was no space, and conversely, every time that they got the ball in tight, they were able to carve us up and just waltz out. They're Lockie Whitfield, Kelly, Taranto. They were just sort of carving us up. There was sort of nothing that we could fall back on. I don't know if we have a plan B. Do we have a plan B? When we're not controlling the game, it just seems they get a goal, we reset, make no changes. Is there any system,
They had an interesting stat on the couch last night, and it showed that most of the bottom teams are the quickest in terms of playing on, not speed. I think we play on
every
30% of the time from marks.
I think it's more than that.
I think it was in the 30s. But
okay, so there was a stat to it.
All the top teams are actually controlling play and not playing on, and most of the bottom teams are doing the exact opposite. GWS, I think, is the anomaly in there. I think they are playing on quite a bit, and yet still sitting close to the top of the ladder. But you're right. They were superb the other day, and it was hard not to be envious of some of those kicks into space to players on the lead, which we just cannot seem to do this season. So, we were taught a football lesson.
It seemed like every time they got the ball, they'd take a mark. They would have another player running his guts out to get into an open space, and they would kick it with a lot of polish, hitting a target every single time. And they'd hit the target whether they were kicking short, whether they were kicking long. It seemed like they had space in the forward line. Every time we went forward, not only did we just bomb it in and not lower the eyes, but we never had space anywhere in the field. They always ran to man up, and it just seemed like they had more players on the field again, which has happened a lot of times.
Is that a work rate thing?
You would think so.
There are plenty of times where you can see our midfielders just jogging through the centre.
Yeah, there was lack of effort, lack of pressure, and I don't know how much you can chalk that up to an injury excuse. Don't know. Angus Brayshaw, what's wrong with him? We've been saying it the last few weeks.
Well, someone posted the other day, and I'd sort of forgotten about this, that he had a back issue during the pre-season, and I think we discussed my implausible theory that he's protesting against being pushed out to the wing and having Jones in the middle, but I think it's far more likely that he's probably carrying an injury, and it may well be that back issue because he's not attacking the footy. We've talked about some of his his sort of half-hearted tackling and contested work. So, yeah, you've got to think it's an injury. I just can't believe that somebody else on the board suggested that it's a work rate thing and that he's not working hard enough defensively. But I refuse to believe that a player who had an issue with this, if you remember at the beginning of last season, he started off in the twos.
Yep.
I just can't believe that Brayshaw would sort of let his standards slip again. He's not that kind of player in terms of his attitude and professionalism, or at least that's not what we've been led to believe. So I tend to think something's probably holding him back.
I think what our injuries have shown is how poor our depth is. I think we all thought we had such great depth, and maybe our depth is good, and you need some of those 10 or 11 or 12 players that are out at the moment who would probably get a game. Some of the players that are in the team wouldn't be getting a game, and it's all right if you have one or two in there as depth, but when you chuck in 6, 7, 8 of them as depth, it's really showing us out.
Yep. Did you think anyone beyond Gawn and Hoare can hold their heads high?
Well, my positives, we've got to find some positives. Gawn goes without saying. I don't think you need to discuss that leading possession getter on the ground for us. What does that?
An indictment on the others, isn't it?
What does that tell you? Hoare is just an absolute find and a half. One particular play is when he was going back at the 50-metre line, centre half back. Went back with the flight of the ball and took an amazing contested mark. Was fantastic, and that's sort of what we want to have him in there for.
He reads the ball really well in the air, doesn't he?
Yeah, we don't have players that can do that, and maybe Lever has that in him, but we haven't seen enough of Lever yet to do whether he can do that. I like Oscar Baker. I think he's been impressive in the couple of games that he's played. Got on the scoreboard twice, and both times the ball was butchered to him, but still managed to get it and showed a lot of poise to kick those 2 goals. So happy with that. Petty, I'm happy with. Showed something, but there's no one else. The saddest thing about all of this is our midfield is still that same core midfield that was the darlings of the AFL back in September, and we're not. I think we won. Did we win the clearances this week? I think we might have. 30. They won 37-34, but we were on top in the centre clearances. But it's just not. It's not amounting to anything. Our inside 50s are still deplorable. Just one more.
Well, when you're 1-3 midway through the third quarter.
Shades of the preliminary final. We should have been down by 6 goals at quarter time. I think the scoreboard throughout the whole game, forget the last quarter, absolutely flattered us. That was a 60, 70, 80 point drubbing. They were very wasteful, particularly early in front of goal. They should have had us away at quarter time.
Can I just say, though, I mean, at the start of the third quarter, Tom McDonald had that shot on goal.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with his kick that he couldn't make the distance from where he was, but inexcusably, no one was on the line to shepherd it through. And it's the basics like that when they're not being done that are inexcusable. and we would have been within. I think we were still within a couple of goals at that stage, or 3 goals. So a goal at the start of the third could have completely, it might have woken us up and changed the complexion of the game. So I thought that was as infuriating as anything else on the day for mine.
We've only won 16 of 40 quarters this year. It's 40%. As a comparison to last year, we won almost 70% of quarters, which was the highest of any other team. It was 2 more quarters than the Eagles and 5 more than Richmond. We're tracking better than 2012 and 2013, where we only won 30% and 23% of quarters respectively, and only just above 2014, where we won 36% of quarters. The year has been an absolute disaster, only made worse by the fact that we went into the year thinking we were going to make finals. There's factors involved in that. How much do you put it down to the injuries that we've sustained? But
it's going to be a financial disaster too. There's only 20,000 there on the weekend, and that's a loss at the MCG. You're never going to have a huge crowd against GWS, but if we were travelling well, that's 30 or, just probably over a little over 30,000. So, to make a loss.
There was no atmosphere at the game. You could hear the umpires during the first quarter, and that's never a good sign. And particularly when we're in the stands, one level up, 10 or 15 rows back. Not good. Goalless quarters again. Just, I don't even know what.
As you said, the inside 50s are deplorable.
Well, again, we had just as many inside 50s. They had 50, we had 47. Yeah. Scoreboard absolutely flattered us. Something's not right. You can't put it. It can't all be put down to Jesse Hogan.
Who's not exactly setting the world on fire.
Definitely not.
But would he be getting a kick with us, perhaps?
Yeah, hard to say. You look at. Just even looking at the stats. There's guys barely. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys not even getting 10 disposals. And then the next 10 or so not even cracking 20. I think they smashed us disposal-wise. I think they had 80 more than us. It's really not good. Look, we're a bottom 4 team at the moment. We're playing a top 4 team. What can we expect? Someone posted an injury team, and you have a look at that. It paints an interesting picture, particularly the back line, because the back 6 pretty much is our back 6. Jeddah, May, Hibberd, Salem, Lever. Well, Jordan Lewis is the other one, but you might substitute him with one of the guys in the team at the moment, like Hall. It doesn't help when you've got half a team in.
Yep. Who would win, the injured team or the non-injured team?
Well, you have a look at again. You have a look at the midfield of the current team. Surely trumps the midfield of the injured team. But then, having said that, having a look at how we've performed,
out of form.
Yeah, they're all out of form. So, look, backline clearly is better. Midfield, our current midfield is better than this team. And our forward line is just our current forward line's completely out of form. you would think the current team would win, but it's not
a
good.
close run thing.
It is. If you would like to join us on the program tonight, you can give us a call 0390163666. You can Skype us at Demonland31. If you want to jump in the chat room, it's at demonland.com/podcast, and you can ask us a question, make a comment. What more is there to say? Look. Are there any positive? I mean, look, have you written this? Is this year written off? Is it over now?
No, because there's still a lot of players to come back, and so even if this season doesn't amount to anything, we need to start thinking about next season. That doesn't mean the plan is any different to how we'd be approaching it if this season were still alive. But, we've got a lot to work on. There's players to come back. So the side that we're hoping to field next year needs to gel and learn to work together and overcome the weaknesses that are hurting us at the moment.
Who do we... I'm just looking. In terms of injuries, players coming back. Hannon's back, played in the twos this week. Jay Kennedy Harris also in the twos. Lever copped an injury. What did the club say? The club said they're not worried about it. Surely we don't rush him back. What do you do? What do we do?
Lever?
Yeah, we got to make sure he gets right.
It's hard to tell whether he, like they said, it's no big deal, but it was hard to tell whether he might just miss this week because of it, or whether he's actually good to go again, and if he is good to go, whether he's played sufficient football to come into the ones. Look, I don't think anyone should be hurried back. I'd love to have, perhaps even more than Lever, to have Mitch Hannon back. But he also has been out for an extended period. So, let them have the time that they need to be cherry ripe before coming into the seniors.
Well, there was a report, Despicable Me, over at Demonland, gave his report. He said Lever was playing pretty well. His disposal was excellent. He was taking kick-ins and our backline was on top when he went for a contested ball. And then looked to twist his ankle, was hobbling and went off. He said Bruce was okay, but their ruck was 6 inches shorter than Bruce. JKH was our best player.
That's encouraging.
Yep. Look, I think we've got to give JKH a go. Our small forwards, Garlett and Spargo.
It was his first game back, wasn't it?
Who's that? JKH? Yeah, it was.
So would you bring him in straight away?
I don't know. I think I would. I think I'd bring. He said Hannon was okay, looked fit and well, a little rusty. Maybe one more before a call-up. So, look, it all depends on whether we've given up on this year, and I doubt the coaching staff have given up. But
Goody named everyone during his press conference and sort of said, "Oh, well, everyone's available next week." So he was certainly trying to use that as a bit of a positive.
I think I would bring Wiedemann in. I think we've got to play him for the rest of the year. I think we've got to see what he can do.
Does he come in at the expense of Tim Smith?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what. Obviously, they're not. Bruce isn't part of the equation. I think Bruce is there as backup. As much as I'd like to play him, but that doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, he's not doing a hell of a lot in the twos, so I don't know why people think he's going to change things in the ones.
Well,
especially when Max is in, Max is in as good a form as he's ever been.
I'm thinking more of him playing in the forward line. He's kicked goals when he's been in the team, and that's purely what I'm basing it on. But that doesn't appear to be the way we're going. Yeah, I definitely bring Weed in. Hannon looks like he needs another week. They're not going to play Lever. Possibly bring in JKH.
Lever's been talking, though, as though he's going to play. He keeps talking about playing against Adelaide.
Yeah, but I think just the fact, possibly if he hadn't done the ankle, seems like it's not anything serious, but I don't know if they'll play him.
Salem, you presume, would come back in?
Yeah, I think Salem will come back in. And
would you have brought in Spargo or Jordan Lewis for Salem last weekend on Sunday?
On Sunday,
2 days ago?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Lewis is probably almost played his last game for the club.
Should we discuss his suspension?
Well, it's on the run sheet. There's a lot of people sort of not happy in terms of. This is not the first time he's done that.
It's
and he's a
happened
leader.
At least once every year, hasn't it?
Yep.
I couldn't remember the exacts, but it's happened at least once a year, and it's look. Some people are saying the season's done. What does it matter? And his career's almost over. But I reckon it's pathetic from Lewis at a time when the injury list is, 15 names long. Whether it's in the ones or the twos, it's unforgivable for a player to take themselves out of the equation when we're struggling for leadership, and he's meant to be a leader at both levels. So, inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable.
Yeah, 100% agree. But I guess it's a moot point whether he should have come in, but he's not going to be available next week. So, look, I don't know. We've got a lot of fringe players. I think there's going to be some hard decisions to make come the end of the year, who stays and who goes. But, I don't know. I can't see Lewis being around next year.
His deal was only for 3 years, and this is the end of the 3 years.
Yeah. So
17, 18, and 19. So surely there's no suggestion that he's going to stay on.
I don't think so. But do you go down the Alex Clarkson route and not play? Look what he's done to Ruffy.
Do we just does Lewis now rot in the reserves for the rest of the year?
Look,
if we can get a few back, which we are getting a few back, Hibbard's one we didn't mention before also, who's probably going to come back in this week. We hope. Yeah.
Is he though? He was still last week. He was still 1 to 2 weeks.
I thought Goody had mentioned he was okay. I could be wrong.
I could
but
be.
Look, you'd hope that at the end of the year, Lewis is out of the team anyway, surely. With Marty Hall playing well, Hibbard, Jetta, May, and Lever to come back in.
The updated injury list is as follows: Hibbard, test; Stephen May, test; Kolajasny, test.
That's good news out of nowhere.
Yep. Well, he was a TBC a couple of weeks ago, so that's good. Nibbler, test; Salem, test. Well, obviously, Lewis, the week suspension. Melksham's only 2 to 3 weeks away. Joel Smith and Vandenberg are 3 to 5 weeks away, if those numbers can be believed, because both of them have had 4 to 6 for quite a while. A 3 to 5 might be the new 4 to 6, just to put us off the scent.
And and stop the flood of emails into the club.
Yeah, so I think the situation in terms of injuries, an injury-riddled team, obviously after the bye will be a totally different story, but whether the season is well and truly cooked by then, the next 2 weeks will tell the story. It's if we're still talking F words, have to beat Adelaide. That goes without saying, and probably have to pull off a miracle now against Collingwood, which will be no mean feat.
You know what, Andy? To be honest, I actually don't care about this season anymore, because whether we make the finals or not, I think we'd all agree that we're not going to win a premiership this year.
No.
I think the most important thing is that by the end of the season, we want to see a return to the DNA of Melbourne 2018. So it looks like we're going to have pretty much the second half of the year with most of our squad back in. If they can all stay healthy and on the field, then let's build towards a very big 220, and that'll be sufficient for me. And in terms of maintaining the faith, and that will help convince me that this year is the blip rather than last year being the blip.
Let's hope so, because I'm still, I don't know, maybe it's just because my expectations were so high last year and then not seeing it come to fruition again this year.
But we've had linear improvement for so many years in a row. You know, to step back, admittedly, it's a big step back. There's a range of reasons that can explain all that.
Yeah, let's hope so.
But yeah, look, we'll see in the back half of the year.
Yeah, it will tell the story. And well, look, hopefully we can show a return to that form in the back half of the year. But yeah, time's going to tell.
Redlegs 23 says in the chat room that Hibbo looks more likely to be ready for QB.
Yeah, probably. I don't even know who changes this week. I don't know who you bring in.
There could be a whole host of them.
Look, it all depends on how much they talk a lot about getting the players back to peak fitness. So I don't know.
It's interesting. Matty Lloyd was saying on Footy Classified last night that and he was talking in reference to Bryce Gibbs being dropped by Adelaide, and he said it can actually be galvanising for a playing group to see a teammate effectively punished for not adhering to team rules. And you just got to wonder, with all our injuries, whether some of our players resent some of their teammates continuing to get a run despite them openly breaching, the rules on the ground about, going and contested work and hard running and defensive running and things like that. Because there's more than a few passengers at the moment.
But given the extensive injury list prior to now, some of these players coming back, it's been hard to sort of enforce that type of stuff.
Well, that's it. Standards drop because you've got no choice ultimately, and so players are getting a game when they probably don't deserve it.
Yeah, I can see your point there.
Theoretically, Spargo could come in for Salem as the change, as per the late change on the weekend. Wiedemann for Smith. Hibbard for Wagner, although we've just been told Hibbard might be more likely the following week. A JKH for a stretch.
And
then possibly
or a Garlett.
Or the other one I had was ANB or Hannon for Garlett. Yeah.
Well, look, hopefully things are starting to turn around in terms of getting our best team on the park, because until we do that, we're going backwards, and maybe that'll put a rocket up the players. We had the mid-season draft last night. Welcome a new demon into the fold, Kyle Dunkley. You know much about this young fella?
No, only that he comes from a good footballing family. Well, a good sporting family, I should say, because not only his dad, the former Swans player, but his sister plays for the Melbourne Vixens.
Yep.
And a brother, of course, playing, I think, for the Dogs.
Yep.
Certainly playing VFL footy. So, yeah, look, why not? Welcome and good luck, and yeah, go well.
Do we put him on the flight to Darwin this week? As a player
Might be tempting.
Come in mid-year and get a game straight up.
Well, someone pointed out that he kicked 3 goals a few weeks ago, and I don't think we've had that all year. Well, the whole team struggled to kick 3 goals on the weekend, so maybe he'll be making his senior debut earlier than expected. But we've had pretty good success. We've had reasonable success dipping into the AFL. Hannon and Hall, being the 2 standouts there.
Yeah, Lockhart's been all right.
And Lockhart showing a bit too, yep.
That's sad news coming today with former Demon captain Brad Green's wife passing away. So we just want to extend our sympathies to Brad, who has joined us on the podcast before, and to his family and to his boys. Very sad news indeed.
Devastating.
Yeah.
My sister used to go to playgroup actually with the Greens. The kids are the same age.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're heartbroken. So young, so it's heartbreaking to think about. And we, as you say, we send our best regards to his family and friends.
Well, where to from here? Grapeviney.
Well, it puts it all in a bit of perspective, doesn't it? It's just footy. We might get angry and annoyed and irritated, but it's all a game in the end. And, we've got the big freeze coming up as well.
Yep.
Neil is back on the telly rallying the troops, which is good to see. So there's quite a lot of activity going on in that space. Have you got your beanie yet?
I do have my beanie. I got it in the mail the other week. And we'll talk about that in a minute because we do have a caller on the line. Good evening or good afternoon, I should say, and welcome to the Demonland podcast.
Good afternoon, gents. Ridley's 23 here. First time, long time. How are you?
I'm very good. What can you tell us? Can you give us any positives, or are you?
Yeah, it's obviously look, it's been done to death in regards to how this season has gone so far. As you guys have put it, for the last little while, it's been obviously a bit of a disaster from day dot, pretty much. But look, I guess having a look at the team over the weekend, I mean, we had pretty much 5 out of our top 6 backline players. Not to mention, obviously, what's happening up forward as well. I just think that if you take the caliber of guys such as, in form and fit and firing Lever, as well as May, Hibbard, Jeddah, Christian Salem, I mean, really, if you take the 5 top defenders out of any team, you're going to get results like the weekend. I mean, obviously last Friday night, I think it's a lot easier when you can sort of get up for such games like a Friday night game where, it's almost a one-off. The spotlight was on us in a huge way that week leading up to it. We tend to travel quite well and sort of almost respond, when we're sort of copped a bit of a hiding in the media as well. And I just think with the caliber we had out there on the Friday, maybe a response for a week or two was possible, but to do it constantly, week in, week out, with the players that we've got out, you could tell it definitely just sort of there was a tipping point over the weekend. I think it was always going to come at some point, and it definitely did on the weekend, unfortunately.
Yep, fair call.
Do you think if we put those 5 back into the team, are we still going to be able to score? Does just substituting in those 5 quality defenders, how much of a difference does that make in terms of being able to kick winning scores and not having crap disposal into our forward line?
I think at the moment, obviously, confidence is well down. Now, the guys, they would definitely make an impact coming in because of the calibre of player that they are. No doubt about that at all. Whether it immediately mean that the scoring is what's going to help us score more, I'm not too sure. But what it would do, it would bring a lot of confidence, I think, because we would obviously get a lot of drive from our defensive guys, such as Hibberd, such as Salem as well, Lever with his intercept marks, as well as May. So they're all capable of giving us a lot of drive coming from the defensive end. Unfortunately, guys in our team at the moment, like Oscar McDonald, he's a stopper. He's not going to give you barely any intercept marks or any offensive drive at all. Marty Hall, as we've spoken about, he's looked awesome. I'm looking forward to the time that we can free up guys such as Marty Hall. I mean, there were obviously times on the weekend where he was exposed one-on-one because that's just not his role at the end of the day. Wagner, I mean, constantly turning the ball over under no pressure. And I mean, a lot of the guys have done that the whole year, not just to single out Wagner. So I think I'll give our team a completely different look and a lot more of an injection of confidence as well with those players in the team. It's just unfortunate to see that our backline was so decimated. And I think, the guys that we had in the team, it was just only going to be a matter of time before it just sort of hit the fan, and we saw that in the weekend, unfortunately.
Another player that I've been a little bit disappointed in this year, Bailey Fritsch. Boys, what have you thought of Bailey this year?
Yeah, look, his kicking has really gone off the boil. He's struggling. I don't know why. Hopefully, when some of our defenders come back, as Redlegs has pointed out, that he'll be moved to a wing or even to a half forward. But probably suffering the second year blues a bit this year, and certainly looks off the boil.
Yeah, great, Vonnie, no doubt. I mean, we saw early in the first few rounds last year that this boy can definitely take a mark up forward.
Yep.
He's got a nice pair of hands. He's got a very, very solid technique when he's shooting at goal. No doubt about that at all. So you could just see that he was just at home up forward. No doubt about that. He'd obviously played up in the forward line for Casey as well. So having in the back line, once again, due to injuries and all that, happened last year. It's happened this year again. He bites off. At the moment, I think he's biting off a lot more than he can chew in terms of disposal. You can almost see what he's trying to do, and I definitely think that he's got the skill to deliver some of those kicks, but it's just not working at the moment. And I think he just needs to just pick it back and just go to basics, because the guy can kick, but it almost looks as though his confidence is just absolutely shot. Defensively, there's almost not a defensive bone in his body besides an intercept mark, which he can take occasionally. Defending one-on-one, or just in terms of body positioning, in terms of those attributes that a normal defender would have, you can clearly tell that he's getting exposed in those areas, unfortunately. So we need him definitely up forward, I think, or as you're suggesting, along a wing, where he can utilise his skill, which he does have, but unfortunately it's just his confidence is definitely shot at the minute.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'd love to see, the coach make a move and play him up forward, but obviously in terms of our need in the defence at the moment, until we get some of the cavalry back, that we're not going to see that move. Sorry, was it this? This is I'm talking to Redleg 23. Redlegs 23. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So you said in the chat room that Hibbo looks more likely to be ready for Queen's birthday. Do you have the inside info on that, or that's just your feeling?
It was just more. I just literally was reading Misso's report, and it looked as though because I can recall it said last week that it said a week to go.
Yeah.
For him to be ready. It was quoted that Misso was saying that he's got a couple of little boxes to tick. He's looking pretty good. However, just from the way he worded it, it just seemed as though he was saying, look, it may not be this week, more likely for next week. So that was my read on it, to be honest. That's how I sort of read it anyway from where he was coming from.
Yeah, just when you talk about Hibbo and Salem being out of the team, just those two really puts a dent into the team, and add Melksham, who's probably our best user of the ball in the forward half. Really, you're not going to win too many games taking players of that caliber out, and yeah. Redlegs, any other comments you want to make?
What else? What else is there? Yeah, obviously, look, it's been a disappointing year. As you guys put out, it'll just be good to sort of see the back end of the year, in particular from the bye onwards almost, once we start getting a few of these guys back in the team, just to give us some sort of a look at that DNA that we sort of held throughout last year. I think also one thing to take in consideration, and it's hard in the AFL footy when, we burst onto the scene last year. We were coming on in a great way the last few years, but it improved, and all of a sudden last year it all just sort of worked out. Now, the reality is, though, if you look at a lot of our best players and, our potential star players such as Clayton Oliver, Brayshaw, all these players, they're still kids, really. Oliver's, he's a gun, he's a star. Yes, his disposal this year has gone off the ball, no doubt about that at all. But the reality is, he's in his, third or fourth year of footy. Brayshaw, maybe a year more than him. Petrarca, we can go on about track, but these guys are all young, so I just think that it's probably a maturity thing as well. One thing I've noticed definitely about our team, especially these guys that I'm talking about, the Brayshaws, the Olivers, the Petrarcas, the Viney, they just don't seem to be mature. I mean, I hear a lot of interviews about them. I see the way they talk. There's just something about them that says to me that they're just not at that level yet, where maybe football is really that important to them. But I just think that there's definitely a maturity level in these guys that needs to be that gap needs to be bridged, and it may just mean it's a year or two off. I mean, that's just my honest thought. They're just still very young.
Hopefully it's the D's of 2018 second year blues, and it doesn't go further than that, because I don't think I can take another year or even another rebuild.
Yep. And look, I mean, this is just clutching at straws, really. It's trying to look at as many positives as we can. Max is a star. He's had a fantastic year, but I just think until we sort of get a lot of these players, these injured players on the park, we can't expect to see too much more with some of the VFL caliber players that we have running around. I mean, you can sort of cop 2 or 3 of them, but you can't cop 6, 7, 8 of them.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at before. The depth, having good depth, only takes you so far. But when you're filling up your team with depth players, it's not going to be good. No offense to any of those guys, but yeah.
And just last point, boys, if you guys don't mind,
no, go for it.
Looks as though Malcolm's had a little bit of a setback. I'm not too sure if that was brought up with you guys earlier as well.
No, what's happened there?
Yeah, so he was originally, I think last week he'd gone from 3 to 4, if I'm mistaken, but it looks as though he's apparently seen the surgeon, and he's been advised to wear the moon boot for another couple more weeks. So he was meant to be at the moon boot this week, but advised by the surgeon to be on for another couple of weeks. So they're saying, well, that's I think it's now stated 5 to 6 weeks. So he's gone up a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So that's definitely.
It's no good.
Yeah, not good at all. I did see a post that I think Stephen May put on Instagram, and Melksham was in the change rooms at training in the moon boot on one of those little bikes where you have your I don't know if you have seen these around, where your leg is basically up off the ground and you get around on one of these little bikes. Yeah, not good. I did see that, and I wasn't aware that the estimated return had blown out like that. So no, that's not good news at all.
Yeah, not good. I mean, he's really, if there's been any sort of shining light, I mean, in terms of the forward half, he's been the one lone ranger up forward that's able to hit targets, take a mark, play on talls, smalls, hit the ground. He does well. He converts as well. So he's been a major loss.
Yeah, he was the leading goal kicker up until Jaden Hunt took over, but yeah, not good. Thanks for bringing the mood down. Redlegs 23.
Sorry, guys. It was actually just remembered I was meant to bring that up. But look, we'll take as much positive as we can, and thanks for taking the call, guys. And hopefully we see a bit more positivity over the next, the back end of the year anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It is hard to front up to these podcasts, when you witness what we witnessed on the weekend. But we'll keep plugging along. Thank you for the call.
Thanks, guys.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
That was Redlegs 23 chiming in.
Is that I think his avatar is Heretier Lumumba, looking at Redlegs 23 there in the chat room.
Yes, I can see that.
There's a notorious demon.
Well, just goes back to our great recruiting history.
Well, he was a ruse recruit.
Yes, yeah. What was that trade? Was that the Mitch Clark trade? There was a three-way. Was that a three-way trade? Mitch Clark to Geelong. Was that Varco to Collingwood and then
Collingwood and Heretier to Melbourne?
Yeah, I think Collingwood
worked out for Collingwood.
worked out Collingwood won that one. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the year in terms of trade. Do you think it's probably way too early to talk about this, but do you think they will trade a big name in order to go for some draft picks? Don't know. Way too early. Way too early to talk about that. Is there anything else from your end?
We're not allowed to trade our first round picks this year, I don't think.
No,
we have to use them.
We've traded them out with the maximum. I think you're allowed 2 in a row, and we're well and truly.
So we have to go to the draft.
Yeah, I saw an interesting thing on Demonland, was in terms of rising stars, and we haven't had a rising star nomination since. Did you see that on Demonland?
Did he get one last year?
I don't think so. I think we hadn't had one in a couple of years.
Since the Oliver days, perhaps.
Yeah. I think it's going back that far. Someone... I won't look for that now because I have no idea in what thread that was. But I think it's time to get back some early
Go back to the well.
Well, I don't think we're quite there yet, but the form's definitely got to turn around. In terms of the Demonland podcast, after the Queen's birthday game, we're going to be joined by Stephen O'Dwyer on the podcast. So for those fans of the late 80s, early 90s, strap yourselves in for that one.
Straubs is, well, he still is. He's a cult hero, isn't he?
Yeah, look, he was not just a cult hero, he was a very good footballer.
He was a very good footballer, but definitely a cult hero. And I like the photo that you found to illustrate or to advertise that podcast on the board. Straubs leaning over the umpire, hands on hips, elbows pointed out, angry, irritated, perplexed, perhaps as to why he's being entered into the umpire's book.
Well, he was
another report.
If you remember, he was reported and did miss a grand final as a result of that. So we will be asking him about that. And
was that picture from that day, from '88?
Yeah, because that's against Carlton. So I'm assuming that is from I'm pretty sure that's from the preliminary final, where he did get suspended and then ultimately rubbed out. I think he got 3 weeks for that. So we'll ask him about that and ask about his thoughts on missing a grand final. If he thinks being in the team might have, we got thumped that day. What did we lose by? 80 points or something, which was a record.
96.
96, which was the record at the time. We'll speak to him about that because there's been a few players over the year that have missed out on grand finals. And interestingly enough, our new recruit, his father was, I think, he was reported in a preliminary final, but then ended up playing in the grand final because he was done with the trial by video, and because I think the case ended up going to court, and because the Swans challenged it, and because I think there wasn't a reasonable amount of time for preparation or something, he wasn't suspended until after the fact, and I think was given 3 weeks after, so he was actually able to play in the grand final. I think they did lose to North Melbourne on the day anyway, but he did escape penalty for that until the next year. But it'll be interesting to speak to Straubs about that time. I've got fond memories of that era.
It'll be interesting to talk to him about Jimmy Steins too, because two really good ruckmen at the club at the same time.
It was pretty unheard of.
Struggled to play together.
Yep.
Both needed to be the number one ruck, and we just never seemed to quite work it out. And we didn't. It was a little bit like Bennett and Jakovic. They couldn't. Neither could fire together. It was either one or the other that was having a good day.
It'll be interesting to speak to him about the current state of ruckman, and ruckman now are a lot more sort of mobile. And you have a look at Grundy, and even Maxi Gawn and his fitness, how he thinks he would stack up comparing back in the day to today, how he reckons he'd go playing in today's modern game. So lots of questions I got sort of bubbling away in there. We'll speak to him after the Queen's birthday game.
Looking forward to that.
All right. Well, once again, apologise to our listeners in terms of our mood. We're sort of back to a couple of weeks ago. I think it was just before our 2 wins on the trot when we were a bit down. Hopefully we can be back up next week and perked up. I miss winning games of football.
Any chance we can repeat what did we beat Adelaide by? Was it 100 and...
I think it was under 100. I only think we won by 100 against Collingwood, against Carlton. But I think it was in the 90s.
It was 91.
Yeah.
And Carlton was 109.
I don't think
the
we can.
sum of them was 200.
I don't think we can repeat that. It would be nice. Look, they're not travelling too well either, but we have a habit of playing teams into form, and they've had some question marks over a couple of players as well. I think someone's called for text to be dropped, so I'm sure he'll back it up against us. Yeah,
He pulled out of a contest.
I saw that one. That wasn't a good look, so I'm sure he'll be fired up.
It's particularly not a good look when you're a man mountain
He's
like
huge.
Tex is.
And
I mean, we criticise the smallest and skinniest of players for not going into the most dangerous of incidents. But yeah, when you're built like Tex,
he pulled out of that. He shot himself. I wouldn't say that to his face, but
no.
but yeah. All right. Well, let's hope we can back it up, and maybe our moods will be a little bit better when we front up next week. Well, thank you, Grapeviney, for joining me once again, and thank you to our caller, Redlegs23. As I said, we'll be back next week, back on Tuesday, back at a normal time. If you, we'll just do a bit of housekeeping here. If you're listening to this at your leisure via SoundCloud, on demonland.com or via iTunes or an Android podcasting app, be sure to subscribe to the show to receive updates when a new show drops. Don't forget to leave us a favourable review. It really does help more people find us. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/demonland31, on Twitter at demonland, on Instagram at demonland31, or on YouTube just search for Demonland Podcast and listen to some of the interviews we've conducted with current and past players and coaches. If you love talking about the D's 24/7 all year round, join up to demonland.com and chat with other D's fans about this great club. The mood is down at the moment on Demonland, but hopefully it comes back up at some point in the back half of the year. All right, let's go D's.